Before we start, I want to tell you about something I've been building. It's called the Clinician Founder Membership Community, a practical place for clinicians who want to bring a meaningful idea to life, whether that becomes a service, a product, a portfolio career, or a new form of impact. It's built around a simple find, test, and build pathway with practical resources, peer support, office hours, and workshops to help you make progress around the clinical life without having to build alone. I'll be opening the doors soon. If you'd like early access, send me the word community on LinkedIn or Instagram, or use the link in the show notes to sign up to my newsletter and get early access to this new founder community. Now, let's get into the episode. Welcome back to the Clinician Founder Podcast.
There's a lot less teaching. We're almost moving towards coaching. Also created a strategy where I record everything, send it back to my students and let them hear for themselves what they were able to do. And they would come back and go, Rachel, I went to a conference, and after the conference I sat, and instead of disappearing, I sat and talked to people.
I think in my mind, LinkedIn and social media is the new CV.
If we have an idea in our head for long enough, two things happen. We either convince ourselves that the idea is terrible.
So welcome to the Clinician Founder Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Shubhendra Kulshresht, an emergency medicine doctor, founder coach, and creator of the Clinician Founder Everything. This is the show where people explore how clinicians go from idea to impact. Each week, I sit down with clinicians who are building businesses, products, communities, services, and movements that matter. Together, we'll unpack what they found, what they tested, what they built, and what it really takes to bring a meaningful idea to life. Because the world doesn't need more clinicians with ideas, it needs more clinicians who know how to bring them to life. This week, I have with me the amazing Rachel Williams. Thanks for joining me today, Rachel. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much for inviting me.
My pleasure. It's really good to have you here. And I'm finally able to return the favor of me being on your podcast on LinkedIn about a year or maybe 2 years ago now.
I think maybe 2 years ago when we actually did, when LinkedIn had audio lives.
Very true. Wow,
Yeah.
time has flown by. For our audience, would you mind telling them who you are in a brief gist, please?
Okay. So we should start. I'm not actually a clinician. I've gate crashed. So I've been working with clinicians for too many years, about 2008, doing communication skills for international doctors. I started, and then about 2020 moved online, still working with international doctors, doing both clinical communication skills and then starting to do writing with them. And now I do quite a bit of helping doctors to write and get visible on mostly LinkedIn. And I also write for some doctors as well.
Oh, fantastic. And have I completely made this up, but did you have a nursing background?
Yes, yes, that's why I'm probably able to do clinical communication skills. So yes, for many years, up until about the age of 40, I was a nurse. So worked on orthopedics, worked in vascular theatres. So yeah, and then took that to help doctors and some nurses to communicate more effectively and pass the exams that they needed to work in UK as well.
Oh, amazing. So in my mind, once a clinician, always a clinician. It's very exciting. So you've been helping clinicians in many ways, and specifically doctors in many ways, and leveraging your background in English education as well as your experience in the clinical world coming together to help doctors. When did this idea of helping people with their English come to mind for you?
Right back when I was actually nursing. So when I was nursing, I also worked for adult education, so doing classes in the evenings. So I was balancing two jobs. And in the end, I thought, actually, I sort of prefer the teaching and the helping. So I went off and did a more intense course. And while I was on there, they actually said, did you know that there's a need for medical English? And I went, no, found out more. And then it just worked because the background and my my love of English, my love of writing, the job just gave me both of those. So yeah.
So take us back. Was it just that somebody suggested you should do medical English, or was there at this point a bigger idea of what this business or this life could look like for you?
No bigger idea at that time. And if I'm honest, when they said it, I actually went, well, I just want to leave healthcare behind and teach.
I'm sure that resonates.
Yeah. But then I went to a school and I ended up teaching an emergency care doctor
Okay.
from Hungary
Wow.
who was wonderful. And the whole relationship that we built up and the trust that she put in me was the thing that I think has stayed with me and clicked and thought, oh, I would
Mm.
really like to do this because I can make a difference and I
Mm.
can have an impact.
Yeah. Impact. Tell me more about that. So how has that kind of played out? Have you, looking back, is the impact you've made what you wanted?
It's changed as I've gone along the way, but I think it's been really lovely on an individual level to see different doctors from different walks of life be able to move it forwards in their career.
Hmm.
So that's been really, really good. I think where I've had a bigger impact is more recently is working with doctors that are already working in our National Health Service. They've passed all of the exams, but then they've still found themselves struggling. So they've got up to sort of senior registrar or locum consultant position, and they want to move into maybe a post,
Yeah.
but they just haven't quite got the confidence. And it was their English sometimes that was holding them back.
Wow. Any particular examples that stand out for you?
Yeah, I think couple recently, one intensive care consultant who was just wonderful. But I think the biggest difficulty he had was breaking bad news because how he did it in his culture was very different to how we deliver information.
Mm.
And it's actually in reverse. So instead of giving all the details, which is what he would do, first of all, and then the bad news, we tend to go, look, this is what is wrong.
Mm.
And this is why, and this is what we can do about it. So someone's not sitting there waiting, going, oh, what's coming?
Mm.
So it wasn't that his English was great. There was
Right.
no problem with his English. So sometimes it's not an English problem, it's a cultural problem.
That's so interesting. And I think when we've spoken about this earlier as well, there's so much element of culture. So in my mind, it kind of is like medical English. Okay, it's English with medical terms, but actually it's the use of English in a medical
Yeah.
environment, which is so much more than just English.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
That's fascinating. Okay. And so you've been able to help this doctor really understand those elements and transform the way they practice and for their own benefit, but also the patient's benefit.
Yeah. And I know that he's just applied to be
Oh,
a full consultant now as well.
that's fantastic. Amazing. Okay. So you started off with these skills and the ability to help people. I want to go through what it was like. So, there's this moment when you're like, I know how to solve the problem, but then the more you try to solve the problem, the more hurdles keep coming up. And, there must have been a point where you realize that actually it's not the language, it's the culture, and it's not the culture, it's the system. And tell me about that a bit.
I think it's because I work with people mostly that their English is fine. And most people think that they don't need English support, but that they realise that they do. And I think when I realised it was when I kept hearing the same thing was when people were talking about how they felt in situations. So if they couldn't find the right words or if they didn't understand a particular accent, because if you move to the north of England, you've got to understand a completely different English than maybe that you've learned from textbooks.
Mm.
So suddenly, where you once felt secure, you suddenly don't. And I think what it was is I kept hearing the language of how people felt, not the actual words. That it wasn't that they couldn't find the
Wow.
words.
How did that change what you were trying to achieve?
There's a lot less teaching.
Okay.
So there's a lot more. We're almost moving towards sort of a coaching, and also created a strategy where I record everything, and I used to send it back to my students, and then let them hear for themselves what they were able to do and what they couldn't do. And once they actually, a lot of the time, once they realised, actually, I can do this and I can hear myself do this, then they would come back and go things like, Rachel, I went to a conference and after the conference, I sat And instead of disappearing, I sat and talked to people. Yeah. So
Like,
that's sort of,
you're not just solving their need to pass an exam or be technically good. You're solving something that's meaningful to them, and someone
yeah,
who's maybe even an extrovert and really likes socializing hasn't been able to do that after conferences, and that is so beautiful.
yeah. So
I really
that's
enjoy
the
that
bit
one.
that, that's the little bit that makes me that warm feeling inside that you get.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, I may be biased here, but I feel like clinicians are really driven by that. Like, are we really making a difference in the person's life
Yeah.
with whatever we're doing? What's been the biggest challenge for you so far?
I think so many. So I think going from the classroom to online during COVID
Hmm.
was a big challenge. And then working out how do I find my own clients, which meant marketing.
Mm.
I have no background in marketing. So it then meant writing, which I realized I've always liked writing. And then writing almost ended up in my resignation it ended up in my resignation from the school,
Okay.
because the school wanted to know why I was writing these sort of medically sort of themed articles on LinkedIn.
Tell me more.
And they felt like it was a conflict of interest going
Ah,
on, maybe.
okay.
So they wanted me to put in writing why it wasn't. So what I put in writing was my resignation letter.
I love it.
I thought, no, I'm going to go and do this because I want to work with people I want to work with. And what I realized by going online is that I could choose the people that I worked with,
Mm.
rather than if you work for a teaching platform or if you work for a school, then you get given students.
Yeah.
So, and that can be quite different. So that was, so the biggest challenge, which I think and it's the same challenge that doctors who have ideas that want to go and share them with the world have, is the going online
Mm.
and putting yourself out there.
Why do you think it's such a challenge?
A good old imposter syndrome, which gets thrown around, but it's real, and it's real in senior consultants.
Mm.
It was certainly real with me. So although I could write, and although English is my first language, I just got really scared of, what if people don't like this? Because it's a judgment on yourself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. We are not immune to those little red notifications of somebody
Mm.
liking what we've written or not.
In fact, I think we're trained to do the opposite almost. I think imposter syndrome doesn't justify what it is, actually. I think it's not just this feeling of maybe I'm not good enough, but it's this feeling of needing to be good enough even when I do it. Like,
Yeah.
I've been doing the whole appraisal system, and ARCP is coming up, and everything is about others' opinions of you. Everything is about
Yeah.
how do they rate you? How do you rate yourself? And, what evidence do you have to show for it? And yeah, I think we're trained to think that way for ourselves, but
Yeah.
also for others, and say, how did they get away with that? How did their colleagues let them get away with it? And all
Yeah.
of those things are kind of what come up for me. Is that still true for your clients as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Both for teaching, and because now I've moved sort of towards helping doctors with their writing, because
Mhm.
people just kept asking me, even people that they would say, Rachel, I know I'm not an international doctor, but
Okay. Can you still
so
help?
can you still help? Because they could write academically, but then putting themselves out there on social media was another thing.
And let's talk about that for a second. I think in my mind, LinkedIn and social media is the new CV. I think that's where your credibility stems from. That's where you kind of show your
Yes.
work. You've been doing this for a while. How recent is this?
So I think when I first looked at LinkedIn, maybe about 10 years ago, it was this very, very just a CV,
Mm.
this very dull, boring corporate place. And then around 2020, when I sort of came back and started writing a few articles, I could see the changes. So I've been doing this about 6 years now.
Mm. And how long have doctors been itching to make themselves known on LinkedIn now?
I think it would be a similar sort of time, maybe about 2022. I think not
Okay.
in the middle of COVID, because they
Mm.
were full in sort of, but I think the aftermath of COVID was like that shock of like, well, what happened and do I want something different in my life? So we started seeing a lot of the doctors come through then. So I would say about 2022 onwards, which is possibly when you may have started.
Sort of. I think I was still probably late. I want to say I've been on LinkedIn for probably 10 plus years as a, bit of a silent observer, maybe. I don't even know if I might not even have had a profile picture, definitely not a banner.
Okay.
And I think I've started taking it seriously. I think, yeah, end of 22, 23-ish,
Okay.
when I
Yeah.
kind of said, oh, that's where all the coaches are. And that's where all the doctors doing non-clinical things are. This is
Yes.
something to take seriously. And yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's when they, as I say, when they sort of started that 2022 onwards.
Okay.
Lots of them came, and now we're still getting people come. What they're doing is they're seeing some of the doctors that already started in 2022 that managed to build a following and going, well, I want that. But it's a little bit harder now because there are more people in the pool and things have changed. And it also, that triggers the imposter syndrome a little bit because they're going, oh, but that doctor's got all of these followers and that doctor's posting and that doctor's doing so. So it's, that comparisonitis comes in and they don't realize that they may have been doing it like you have for a number of years, turning up day after day.
Absolutely. What do you think they're looking for beyond, or what do you think they'll get as a result of that following or that social presence?
I think to a degree there's that credibility. So if they've got an idea for a business that they want, then building a little bit of visibility and credibility is going to be useful. But I would probably do it differently if I had my time over. And I would almost suggest that they might want to try something a little bit different as well.
What would that be?
I would possibly go for a newsletter earlier on.
Oh, I like this. So I was waiting to when we're going to enter the space of talking about newsletters, because I think if you ask any doctor, most of them are going to say, we hate newsletters. We hate receiving them. We hate having them in the inbox. And if for anyone who's become a founder or an entrepreneur of any sort, including myself, I was like, I'm never going to do a newsletter. Everybody hates them. It's such pain and I don't enjoy writing. You feel otherwise?
I do. Why? Because if you have it, and it doesn't matter how big your audience is, can be really, really tiny, maybe smaller is the better. If you want to test a new idea out, what better place than to actually write about your idea and then ask people what they think without it the pressure of social media, with the nobody liking it or no comment, or even somebody commenting negatively for the whole world to see. Start your newsletter with 2 or 3 people. Imagine you're writing to one person.
That's a very different feel from saying, oh my God, there's going to be thousands of people I'm writing to and nobody's going to actually open it, let alone reply to what I'm saying. But when I start thinking of it as just 2 or 3 people, it's like, I probably know them and there'd be a bit of an obligation to kind of respond if I'm writing an email to them.
Yeah. So
That's
that would be because if we have an idea in our head for long enough, 2 things happen. We either convince ourselves that the idea is terrible, or we convince ourselves that the idea is wonderful. And then we go, oh, great, I'm going to create a course because I've convinced myself that everybody needs this course. And you end up creating a course that maybe nobody wants. So shine some light on your idea, but do it in a safe place.
I like
so
that.
Maybe tell yourself to tell 2 or 3 of your friends or your peers, oh, I'm going to start a newsletter. And they might have, oh my goodness me, that was that. But tell them it's just for you 3. I'm going to start just to try. And I would say that there are some newsletters that you do open and you like and you read and you look forward to. So have a look at those.
Yeah.
What have they got that you like? And you don't need to copy them word for word, but just sort of, what is it? Is it because they're short? Is it because there's a link to something better? Is it because they are doing this or going, oh, I've got an idea? Is it because they're giving you something useful?
My experience with newsletters has been interesting as well, but I want to hear first, how do you do your newsletters? All the details. What platform do you use? How often do you write them? How the process? I want to know.
Okay. So I use a platform called System. So I think it's a French-Irish platform. I just write them in normal text. So no pictures, no, it's just
Okay.
literally like an email. No fuss. I generally start with an idea which ends up scribbled in my notebook here because I'm a pencil and paper girl when it comes down to it. That's where I start. And then I edit them and then I send them off, aiming for weekly. Occasionally there's an odd one that comes out. If I've got an event coming, I'll just send an extra one going, hi, by the way, doing this live and here's the link to it. So I'll use it for that as well. But I also do, hey, I've got this idea. So I had an idea at the start of the year that I would start off a little sort of group sessions sort of on school for doctors to help teach them and sort of not so much teach them, but give them a space where that they could sort of write together and get feedback. And we started off with a 21-day sprint. And I just literally said, hey, is anyone interested? Because if you get one person interested, you think, okay, my idea maybe has legs. But if it's only got one, then it's probably not valid. If you've got 10 people interested, then you can think, okay, this might be worth doing.
Yeah. Before you've actually sat down for 4 hours with ChatGPT and planned out what the entire course is going to look like.
Yeah, exactly that. So that's what I do. I think the other thing is that on a newsletter is you can then look at things like your open rates. So you can go back and go, okay, these ones have done really, really well. What, there's a little bit of reflection. What did I put in here? Why did these open and why not? And then the other ones, I think I always keep an eye on the ones that people actually replied to. And those are probably the ones that are my most conversational, where I almost am having a little chat with you. And they're the ones where I probably pop in a little story as well.
And do you sort of write on the day that you send them out? Or do you bulk write them in advance?
No, I don't bulk write. I really wish I could. Maybe that'd be very, very much more organized, but I'm very much on the spur of the moment. Sort of. Sometimes there are ideas going around. As you know, I cycle everywhere. And when I'm cycling, that's when I'm having my ideas. So I cycle into the office and I'm usually having a conversation with you in my head.
Perfect.
Okay. So, and then I take that conversation. And this morning's conversation was and it really was with you this morning because I knew I was going to be doing this. And it was about newsletters and almost why we should use them. So when my newsletter goes out this week, that will be it. It'll be, look, if you're too scared to write on social media as well, this is a safer place as well. So,
amazing.
Yeah. So that's sort of how I do it.
And when it comes to open rates, what sort of is your expectation, or if someone's starting off fresh, what should they expect?
I've heard that 20 to 30% open rate is good. I get between 50 and 60.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm really pleased with that. But I think it's because I've split my newsletter at some point where I realized where my different audiences were. And I asked them whether, did you want to continue receiving this or not? And if they said yes, they went into one pool. And if they didn't respond, they went into another different pool. And then I focused down on, okay, this is the people that I have said yes. They like what I do. And now I know who you are and I know what you want.
And so I'm assuming your newsletters for the same set of people who are trying to progress their career by using English, spoken English or written English. And they get, what do they get from following the newsletter?
Okay. So mostly it's really, really focused on writing. So not so much. So that's where the pool's split.
Okay.
So it's very much focused on writing, little writing tips, and also how to sort of improve your LinkedIn profile, what to put in different sections, what to write about, little tips, and probably elements of storytelling as well.
Okay. And how long would you say each article or newsletter is?
I tried to keep them short, not as short as my favourite ones. So my two favourite ones are super short, and I really would like mine to go that way. But I think they're probably 200 to 300, 400 words maybe. So they are not essays.
Yeah.
And I think that's where some people go, oh, newsletters, and they open them up and
And
they
they're very
are
long.
the very, very, very long.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to do really long ones, then I would put content at the top and go, here are my 4 sections and this is what's here, so that people could go, okay, I'm only interested in this, and that they can drop down to the part
Yeah.
that they're interested in.
I love that. Okay. So my experience with newsletters, the only way I could convince myself that I would do a newsletter is when I came across these micro newsletters. And I said, it'll be just 3 lines. Each line is going to be a link. And I borrowed this from Josh Spector. I don't know if you've come across Josh Spector. He writes on LinkedIn as well. Just 3 lines, each with a link to something that I've either found insightful that I'd like to share with my readers, or, it's just something that I love and I want to kind of pass it on. That's where it started, and that's how I convinced myself to do a newsletter. And I think that was going relatively okay. And more recently, the more clarity I've had about what is it that people are actually looking for, the more I find myself wanting to say more things and share more things and kind of talk. So mine's gone the opposite way. Mine's started off as a 3-line newsletter, and like the most recent ones have been, I want to say about 400 words-ish, with headings for each section and something actionable to take away at the end of it. And surprisingly, kind of referring back to what are you learning from it, the more recent ones have actually been the ones with more replies. And I found it surprising. I said, wow, you've taken the time to actually read all of that. And it was really heartwarming and some really nice conversations that came out of it. So that's been my experience. And I was looking through my open rates, and they're sort of 35 to 45%. So I thought I was really struggling, but I guess that's not too bad. So
That's
I'm happy with that.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, it's having a look and see when you get those responses. Okay, and you realize that's what people like.
Mm.
And then you're sort of going, okay, let's give them more of what they like.
Mm.
And share a bit of, I think it's a chance where you can share a little bit of who you are. Because I think what I see a lot of, both on social media, not so much in newsletters, doctors tend to be a little bit better, so they may notice the difference. But social media there's that distance that some of them will write, and they will write as if it's a NHS educational leaflet for patients. So they talk about what they do, but they don't share who they are. Because that's scary and vulnerable.
Or they kind of go like Lady Whistledown writing, "Dear gentle reader, but I shall remain anonymous. Here's something really interesting for you, but I shall remain anonymous."
Yeah.
It's scary though. It's scary to kind of talk about yourself and share what your thoughts are, what your opinions are. You don't want to be controversial in any way. There's all these stories of GMC and people thinking about like, oh, I wonder what that makes you as a clinician. What do you say to the people with those sort of hesitations?
I think you have to realize that when you're in a conversation with a patient, the patient is trusting you and they are being vulnerable. And you see that day after day. So in a way, you're doing the same thing. It's scarier because you don't know the audience, which is why, again, I'd say a newsletter is better. You know who is opening and not. It's scarier. But if you're not prepared to, and I'm not saying that you need to share every part of your life. You really don't need to. But if you're just going to stay generic and bland and just use AI as well, which will make you distant, then you're not going to get the trust you need. And that's whether you're working with patients or other businesses. Because trust is built from people these days.
Yeah. And the one-to-one communication, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you need to be able to take what you do in the consulting room and all of the ways that doctors pause, tip their head to one side, nod, all of that, all of those wonderful skills that they have in communication, we need to be able to take that and put it into the written word. That's not easy. So.
That's extremely challenging, and I think that's a meaningful problem to solve as well from the perspective of you being a founder. And it's amazing how, you've brought your skills and strengths together and hit those challenges of actually delivering the value to the people, and you're pivoting and learning along the way as we go. I mean, the landscape's constantly changing, and if we're so, do you reckon that we should do newsletters rather than social media? So start off on newsletters even before something like LinkedIn.
I'm thinking possibly now. I think especially for those that are hovering on LinkedIn and watching and are a little bit nervous about taking that step and posting publicly, then yeah, why not go for a newsletter?
I like that.
Yeah. Now, some people are going to say, well, how do I get my audience for my newsletter? But then I would say start by telling your friends or your peers
Yeah.
or even a couple of your patients.
Yeah.
And to say, well, I could write, I can write to you about this if you like. So you start writing, and then people will tell other people.
Mm.
And also, all of those posts that you write, once you get good feedback, a little bit like the ones that you've said, someone responded to that, you can then take that and create a post from it.
Yeah, I think that gives you so much more confidence, so much more control. And, I even imagine that if there's somebody who you really think would benefit from your newsletter, then you can send them a DM, you can connect with people like that and just make real connections. Say, would you like to join this newsletter? And do it a lot more manually, like definitely not scalable. But I think in that process, there's so many internal barriers that would break down around confidence and making mistakes and support. And I think that's beautiful. And I think that's really taking it back to the way most newsletters probably started before they became like a commercial thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that shift in perspective. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
I do actually get a couple of newsletters from doctors that almost have no social media presence at all.
Brilliant.
So they are, it's obviously working for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, I think this other thing that I was still thinking of was, yes, I write mine in plain text as well. But the bit I really struggle with, and I'd be keen to hear what your advice on this might be, is the ideation. So like you, I guess I have a bit of a commute to work, but mine is about an hour, 40 minutes. And while driving, listen to podcasts, and sometimes I'll listen to one really long podcast or maybe 2 or 3 smaller ones. And I have so many ideas, but I can't actually jot them down. So between the time I get down from the car to getting into work and then finishing my shift and then eventually thinking I should write this down somewhere, the ideas would just evaporate. And come Sunday, when I would sit down to write my newsletter, nothing would be left. So now what I do is, obviously I'm leveraging AI, and I've got a little AI agent that kind of helps me. And so when I get out of the car, I kind of just babble and voice note to it that here's what I'm thinking. I thought this point was so interesting and I want to talk about this. And it kind of just holds on to that information for me. And then on Sunday, it kind of spits it back and says, here's some of the ideas you kind of wanted to write about. So that's been really helpful for me, and maybe why my newsletters have become longer. But I want to hear what your perspective is and if you have any tips.
No, well, I love that, because I think after the massive AI posts that happened last year, and then they've sort of disappeared. And I think people go, oh, well, now we can't use AI because nobody likes AI written posts. Yes, you can use AI, just don't use it to go, please write me a post about whatever. So I think that sounds like really, really good use of, I have a Notion page. So if anybody doesn't know, Notion's a platform where you can just write things and vaguely keep it organized. And it's not like, and the documents go on forever.
Yeah.
So
there's no end to the page. You can
there's
keep
no
going.
end.
Yeah.
So I have an ideas page there. So the moment I get one little idea, I mean, I carry a notebook and pencil wherever, but obviously when I'm cycling like you, when I'm driving, I can't actually do that. So I either get scribbled in a notebook, and then eventually it goes into my ideas list. So then whenever I'm going, oh, I've got nothing to write about, I open up that big ideas list, and there is something on there.
Okay.
It also gives it the time sometimes, because a little bit like, sometimes like, oh, there's a great idea, let's put it out there. And actually it's not a great idea. It gives it a little bit of time for you to go back, reflect and go, okay, where am I going with this? So I I like I think your idea works just as well. If you or just dictate it to yourself, WhatsApp it to yourself.
Mm, that's probably the simplest one. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like that. Okay, thank you. I haven't used Notion for as a single ideas page. I think that's a fantastic idea as well. I used to use Notion quite a bit last year, and I think I've just kind of moved on to Google Docs again for some reason. But yeah, okay, amazing. Is there anything else that you think we should talk about that we haven't talked about?
Good question. Is there anything else? Yeah, I to this point, I have not talked about this on social media. I think I mentioned slightly to you that so last year I was not well
Mm,
at all, and wonderful NHS put me back together. So, and it does get a lot of flack sometimes, but when it works, it works. And I
mm,
wasn't going to mention this on social media because I didn't want to do the oh poor me, or I didn't want 1,000 likes on a post because it was about my health.
mm,
So I wasn't going to do it. And also it was too raw at the time. So it just wasn't the right place. And I think for about 3 months, I didn't write on LinkedIn. I didn't do anything. I just disappeared.
mm,
And just a couple of people sort of knew. But I'm not sure, but I'm almost ready. I'm still probably not going to be posting about it on LinkedIn and making that about me, apart from maybe if there's something that comes about when it's relevant. But I didn't feel like I was seriously ill, but I did end up having major surgery. But I think it gave me such more insight into how doctors communicate.
mm.
Because imagine I've gone from nursing, where you're working with them, to teaching and teaching them sort of the clinical communication skills, and then writing and helping them do that, and then going back and being in rooms where they were explaining things to me. And then was one part of me is I'm the patient and I'm being explained to. And there was the other part of me with this assessor's head on and going, and how well are you communicating this to me?
Wow.
Couldn't take that off. And I've got to say, 90% of the communication that I had with different doctors and nurses was really, really good.
Wow.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, as you were saying that sentence, I didn't know how that 90% would end. I wouldn't
Okay.
be surprised either way if you said 90% was absolutely off the mark or if you said
Okay.
90% was really good. I don't know what that means, but yeah, I just couldn't put a finger on was
Mm,
90% good or 90%
where is it
bad.
going to
But
go?
okay, that's fantastic.
It might not be everybody's story.
Mm,
And I think sometimes we can hold on to the 10% that wasn't good, because
mm,
there was 10%, there were some, and actually they were really not good of the
okay.
10%. Um, so I think there was one person whose, unfortunately, her pronunciation was so terrible on the phone that I couldn't understand. So it was a constant asking for something to be repeated.
Mm,
And when you're talking about something really serious and slightly stressful, that's not good. And there was another nurse who was terribly, terribly distant. So, and that might stay with people.
yeah, yeah.
But, but the good ones were exceptional.
Okay.
Um, my surgeon I really wish I could have her and send people to her of like, this is not how you should do. I don't know how well she did surgery, but I'm here and I'm good. So I think she did a good job. But I really like to send people to her to go, this is how you should communicate effectively to a
Mm,
patient. And she said to me, and I did say to her, I said, I've got to say that your communication has been great. And she said,
wow.
but she said, that's what makes a good surgeon, not our ability to
Yeah.
operate, but our ability to communicate effectively.
Mm,
Because she said, she said, we need patient buy-in because outcomes
absolutely.
rely on patient buy-in.
Mm,
So that was it. It felt like that was important to her.
mm. So she'd taken time to actually develop the communication and
She would have been the best benchmark. I wish I'd met her years ago. I would have recorded her and gone to everyone, look, if you want to communicate well, this woman does it
yeah.
like no other.
And
So
that's meaningful from I guess going back to that bit about impact of like, why are doctors doing this?
Yeah.
And what is the change it can make in their lives, but also in the lives of their patients and so many people that they touch on a day-to-day basis. I don't know how much time you have, but I'm curious about your take on the male to female perspective on taking communication seriously.
So during my journey, I had 4 conversations with 4 different consultants because the going under the knife was the last part. So there were other bits. So first one, older, from India, because I remember asking him where, and warm and friendly and put me at ease. Yeah, great. Second one, younger male, very, very good, but hadn't got to that, maybe that warmth and putting to ease, but I still felt reassured that he was going to be competent, and he was more in that level of I need to be competent. And slight more distance. He did write in the notes afterwards, well-informed patient. So maybe that was me as well. So yeah. And then we had a phone call from another consultant when they were thinking about doing some other investigation, which was quite rare. And again, he could, older again. So maybe it comes with age as well. He could not have been, he couldn't have been better in how he answered all of my questions so thoroughly and honestly and very upfront as well, and quite direct. So no hedging. So yeah. So generally the guys were pretty good as well. So I would say it's probably not a male-female thing, but it may be a maturity thing.
I like how there was bits around competence and capability in there. There were bits about being upfront because there's a lot of my own colleagues, and many of them do happen to be foreign doctors and foreign graduates, who confuse good communication for being nice. And again, also being nice versus being kind. And the need to kind of speak in a way that sounds like they're trying to be very apologetic or saying sorry many times, saying please and thank you a lot. But the bit in the middle is still unchanged, I guess, in a way. What's been your experience with that?
So what I'm going to say, I'm just going to check. So the bit in the middle, are you saying the bit in the middle is not 100% clear?
I guess I did that, didn't I? Where the bit in the middle is still quite, what's the right way to say it? Bit in the middle still kind of, I guess, in some ways exposes their prejudices, their cultural backgrounds, or different hierarchies where they come from, or their perceptions of particular kinds of people or patients. Yeah.
Okay. So is it that sort of, I suppose, depending on where you've come from, there's that hierarchy that you might have of doctor is more senior than patient, whereas we've moved towards the NHS, or we should be moving to where we are having a joint conversation about care between 2 equals, both experts in the person that's in front of them, because I know my body better than anyone else. And you know your speciality better than me. So we have both expertise. So we come towards that. And you're right. Some of the doctors I've worked with have struggled with that, giving the patient space and respecting their view and their right to go either way. Yeah. I think, again, maybe in early training or early years here, that can be the case. I think we're listening and watching and responding. So someone who reflects well on how did that go is going to slowly change things, and then it will happen. And even if English is not your first, even if English is your first language, and even if you were trained here, there are people that get it wrong. So don't let yourself tell yourself that it's because you're not a native English speaker or you weren't trained in the same way. Because because other people not trained in the same way can get it wrong as well. Like the nurse I told you that was really, really distant, she was very, very English.
That's interesting.
The Indian nurse that held my hand while I was having my spinal was the most warm and put me, I've just visualized it. Okay. She was warm and lovely. And we talked about, I should have been in Diwali while I was having my operation, really, because that's where I was meant to go last year. And then I ended up, sitting there holding the nurse's hand. So, yeah. So I think it's not all about, where you come from. I had another doctor who, she phoned me at about 8:00 in the morning. We'd had a consultation the day before. And I'd said to her, what would you do in my position? And she'd said to me, I'd have the surgery. So I'd gone away. And I was teaching a surgeon at the time who was in the same speciality. So I actually asked him as well. And he's like, ooh, it's a big operation. If there's an in-between way, you might want to think about it. She called me the next morning at 8:00 in the morning and she went, I've been thinking about you all night. And I feel like I didn't have the right to answer that question because I'm not in your position.
Wow.
It's like, but I think she had the right. I still think she had the right. I asked her. But imagine that she thought about me. And the first thing in the morning, she calls me to say, I don't think I answered correctly. So there's somebody still checking who's thinking about how she communicates and how, and she's, again, NHS trained, English is her first language, and still wondering whether her communication skills were up to scratch. So you can see through all of this, my assessor's head was on throughout.
Kept you busy.
I did. I was just like, it was almost like I was my own. I was like a guinea pig in my own study. So, yeah.
Brilliant. I have no doubt that this is going to accelerate the work that you already do and make it even more impactful. And what I'm taking away is that where you come from, who you are, has no difference to how you communicate, apart from whether you're interested in working on your communication or not. And as long as you're doing that, there's ways to get better and there's ways to make a difference.
100%.
And thank you for sharing your journey of how that idea became a reality and the hurdles you would have faced to get there. And it's been absolutely inspiring, and it's been an absolute pleasure to obviously get to know you. And you've been my day one supporter on LinkedIn, and it's been such a pleasure to take this journey with you there, knowing that your posts are always around the corner, that I can always ping you a message and say, Rachel, help. So thank you for being here, and I'm so glad I could finally have you on this podcast as well. So really, really good to be here. If people want to reach out and speak to you, just get to know you, where's the best place for them to do that?
I would say that if they're already on LinkedIn, then send me a connection request and send me a message there. If not, if email's your thing, then you can just do rachel@fluentmedicalenglish.com and I will respond.
Fantastic. And speaking of newsletters, what's your newsletter called?
So it's called The Digital Clinic.
Fantastic. And I'm guessing they'll find that on your website and on your LinkedIn as well.
They won't find it on my website at the moment. Okay. That's just gone through a little bit of a change, but they will find it on my LinkedIn profile page.
Brilliant. So reach out to Rachel, and any questions, any comments, if you like this podcast, if anything stood out to you, do drop a message or send us a DM. We would love to hear from you and have a one-on-one conversation.